Well, good evening, my dear brothers and sisters across the continent of Africa and beyond our global society. We like to extend to you our sincere greetings and once again want to welcome you to the People's Talk Show. The People's Talk Show is a part and parcel of the People's News Africa. And the People's News Africa is that platform that brings you information relative to the growth and development of Mama Africa. It is a platform where we share with you our perspective on political, social, and economic issues relative to Africa's prosperity and growth. And this is how we would like to welcome you to another round of discussion that will be focusing on a very interesting topic that cut across the soul and hearts of every Africans across our society. This evening, we will be reviewing a topic that will exclusively be looking into Africa free continental trade area. What prospect does that hold for Africa's economic transformation? As you may be aware, on January 1st of 2021, this particular agreement was signed and finally approved by our African heads of states. So we thought it wise to bring this discussion to you so that we discuss it in depth, that we try to rationalize what prospect this particular agreement hold for Africa. How can this lead to the transformation of Africa in terms of economic, in terms of development, and in every ways, how will it commensurate to meeting the needs and aspiration of the African people? So just to give you a little background of this particular document, the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement will create the largest free trade zone in the world, and that is by fact measured by the total number of countries that are participating in this particular free trade zone. And not just that, it is also expected to connect a 1.3 billion people across the continent of Africa. Okay, so imagine a continent that holds a GDP of an estimated 3.4 trillion dollars. Okay, that's how big this particular economy is. And the agreement also is expected to take roughly close to some 30 million people plus out of poverty, extreme poverty across the continent of Africa. Okay, and by achieving this particular policy, Africa is expected to make significant progress in terms of maximizing or creating jobs, in terms of reducing poverty, in terms of increasing and creating wealth and generating income for the people of Africa. So we think as national and as citizens, as people of Africa, that we bring this discussion to you for us to discuss and analyze and rationalize this particular document, to analyze the different kinds of indicators that are set to make this particular document a workable one, that this agreement will not just be something written on paper, but something that can be run with, something that can be implemented. So today we have a studio, distinguished colleagues of ours will be sharing their thoughts and perspective on this particular document. I have with me Kabala from DR Congo, who is currently based in South Africa, and Kujo from Ghana, but is based in the US. And my name is D. Kafuna Sinentu. I'm speaking to you from Liberia. Gentlemen, I once again want to welcome you to today's conversation, and I would like to give you the next 1 minute each that you can please introduce yourself to our dear listening audience, especially for those who may be seeing you and will be listening to you for the first time, just so they get to know you as we or before we go into the conversation. Any of you can start, sorry.
Thank you very much, my dear brother. Thank you, my brother Kabbalah, for also being part of this great discussion. I also want to thank our dear listeners, for being part of it, devoting their time for us to discuss how we can make the continent of Africa better, and then share ideas to sort of mitigate all the challenges that Africa face today. I'm really glad that I'm part of it, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Kapina. Thank you so much, Joe. As for me, it's always been a pleasure to be part of this platform where we share ideas, we share some thoughts in terms of what Africa has to become, and in terms of what we are supposed to do to bring that African of Africa to the need. So I'm glad to be here. My name, once again, is Kabala, originally from DR Congo, currently living in South Africa. I'm an author, published author of one book, and I'm a community developer. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you once again. So the conversation for today is going to be shuffled into two basic segments. The first segment, we are going to be understanding the background of this particular document, how this document unfolded, the drivers that led to the establishment of this document. And then the second aspect of it, we want to look at the economic implication of this document on the continent of Africa. So we are looking forward to a very fruitful conversation. And just to begin with, I would like to ask you, Brother Kujo, that you just give a little orientation of what this entire Africa Free Trade Economic Zone is all about, and basically what are the drivers that led to the establishment of this particular free trade zone.
So the way I thank you, my brother. The way I look at this is it is great. It is great with respect to what I studied and what I read on the research that I had. It's a great idea, no doubt about that. But the way I saw it is it's a little bit disheartening in such that this is something that Africa should have done so many years ago. So many years ago. Because if you can remember, my own first president of my country, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, that was his idea of bringing Africa together and breaking all barriers so we can intra-trade with each other easily so that we can benefit each other. We can benefit from each other as well. So this is something that we shouldn't sit down for World Bank to propose it before we come together and accept and decide to work on it. This is something that we should have done a long time ago. But I think that, the way that I was looking at it was like, it was a little bit disheartening to me that we sat down, that we waited until this year to do this, knowing that it is so beneficial when countries that are on the same continent see themselves and come together and develop a plan as to how can we benefit each other by studying each country and analyzing, okay, you are endowed with this, you have this manpower, you have this kind of infrastructure, you have this kind of ideas, you have this kind of opportunities. How can we as a country see ourselves, look at each the opportunities, the strengths, the weakness, that we can help each other and build us as a group, as a continent? What I studied was that this thing is gonna alleviate 60% of poverty, extreme poverty in Africa. Why did we have to sit down and do this right now? Right now. This thing should have been done a long time ago, like generations upon generations ago. And the fact that we sat down for these economics from World Bank to study this and then bring people together and do this for us to accept it, it kind of hurts me a little bit. It hurts me, and I was down because I wanted us to be the initiator, to initiate this kind of economic empowerment for the continent. something that is being done by us for us. And then we can know that, all right, this is the journey that we're going. Tell me a country that has been uplifted from poverty by IMF or World Bank. There is no country on earth that has been uplifted from third world to first world by World Bank or IMF. Because all their programs is not to benefit us, it's to keep us where we are so they can benefit on the other way around. When they give you a bonus, when they give you a grant, when they give you something, every news media will show it. But the fact that behind the scene they are extracting billions upon billions from Africa, but nobody can see that we sat down for this proposal to come from people that work with World Bank before we accept it. It is very disheartening to me. And I don't know, I'm short of words, but like I said, I'm not ignoring the fact that it's a good idea. It is a good initiative, but I wanted us to understand and think ahead of ourselves that this thing should have been done generations back by Africans for Africans. Thank you.
Okay, so Kujo, before I proceed to Kabbalah, I just want to clarify a point that you raised as to whether if that is actually what you meant, that this particular policy or this particular agreement in question is not an original thought of Africans leader. Is it something that we have adopted as a goal that we want to pursue, or is it an agenda that Africa has crafted and wants to pursue?
So let me put it this way. You can look at all the contributors and all the writers. All right. When you go online, you can find this and you can read it for yourself. You can look at all the contributors. There are 2 writers and there are a lot of contributors. Almost all of them work for World Bank. Almost all of them work for World Bank. Now, do you think if I'm a representative of World Bank, would I do any initiative that will help World Bank or something that will be a proponent for the advancement of World Bank? That's why I said in the beginning, there is no country on earth that IMF or World Bank has picked up from being a third world country to a first world country. It has not happened and it will never happen. We should not sit down and wait for initiative to come from people that represent the organization that do not help us.
Okay.
We should have sat down and done this by ourselves, like I said, generations ago. Had we done that generations ago, we would have been better off today. Seriously. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Now we will come back again to look at some of these political antecedents that are attached to this document not having a kind of as you tell me, if it is an adopted approach, what impact it is going to have on the continent of Africa, because it has to be something very original that the African people themselves have been able to craft, such that it has a very positive outlook and feelings of belonging by the people of Africa. So let me come to you quickly, Kabbalah. This particular agreement, it offers new hope and it has inspired many Africans across the continent of Africa because it has the ability to inspire economic growth and transformation. It has the ability to boost intra-Africa trade and investment across the continent. It also has the ability to expedite industrialization across the continent. Okay, so how is this agreement, other than just, or how is this particular document expected to foster, if I should say, economic trade, investment across the continent? Because it's just a mere document that has been crafted. Okay, there are wide range of things that need to be done. There are a lot of commitment that need to be put into it. So basically, how is it going to lead or to yield that transformation that Africans are yearning for?
Thank you so much, Kafina, for the question. I think that theoretically, the document has been a very successful document drafted that inspires hope and future, as you have mentioned, to African people. So, as to how is it gonna really translate into changing the real conditions of African people, it must be there must be a work, the real work in terms of productions of what every African country brings in the trade. Because you know, when you do the when you sign a trade agreement, a free trade agreement, or an intra nations trade agreement, there must be a production from both sides. That means I'm going to get to you and buy what I don't have, and I supply to you what you don't have. So, but the question is right now, how much does Africa produce? We know that in most cases in Africa, we're still depending, even for food, by other people. We depend on countries such as Thailand to bring rice to Africa, or countries such as Vietnam, you know, to buy rice and all other basic needs such as food that we want in Africa. So, if you sign a deal in order to have a free trade, but you do not produce actually what you have to supply to to your fellow Africans, how are you going to survive in that trade? You see, so I'm trying to compare it with some agreements that have existed already of free trade, obviously, between, for example, European Union and African countries. For example, there was this particular free trade agreement signed between European Union and Cameroon, whereby taxes were supposed to be limited at a certain level and the prices of commodities had to be limited at certain level. So what happened was before that trade, people in Cameroon were cultivating onions and tomatoes for their own consumptions as well, or also for trading among themselves. So now, after that trade happened, that trade deal was signed, there were now a lot of onions and tomatoes, that were pumped in Cameroon markets from Germany, that were, produced industrially speaking, in an industrial level. So now these onions and tomatoes were very, very much cheaper than the locally produced tomatoes and onions. And that scenario definitely pushed out of markets those farmers, those local farmers who were producing not just to sell, but also to feed themselves. And they couldn't now afford even to cultivate for their own consumptions. So you see, this is what happens when one country produces more and other country does not produce really in order to be competitive in the market, but you sign an agreement of free trade that obviously erase taxes and all other means by which countries used to profit from the products that are coming in their countries. So that's a problem as we're speaking right now. In Africa, we don't produce more, as Thomas Sankara said. We do not produce what we eat, what we consume, and we don't consume what we produce. Most of our things that we're producing now are coming from overseas. So for me, I see that this free trade deal can become a mechanism through which foreign products can enter African markets without being taxed, without being, subject to the regular taxes that used to happen, because they are coming now through the hands of African people, because it will be easy for me to go to China, buy some stock and come and bring those stocks in African countries. Being an African, my product will be for tax free. So in that ways, I'm just promoting foreign products rather than African products. So that's what I'm saying. Unless if There can be a mechanism, such a way that only African products, locally produced, can be now exempted from the taxes and can become now, can be obviously subject to that deal of free trade. In that way, we will be able at least to make sure that this free trade deal or agreement can be beneficial to African people. Well, I close that part, but let me also open a bracket and speak about something very important. The reason why we have heard wars in the world and all these predicaments, nuclear powers, or all these conflicts that we've heard in the world, it's simply because of economic, because of race to control the economy of the world. And we know that for a long time, Africa has been subject to its condition where it is being its cloud to gain some economic independence. So in other words, for you to build a strong economy, you must be able to protect your economy. You must be able to build some mechanism that can allow you to protect and to defend your economy. So Africa is willing to build that economy that will obviously give the GDP, the continental GDP of 3 trillion US dollars, which is a threat to European economy. But Africa does not have the means to protect its economy, to defend its economy. Do you think that that will succeed? I guess you know the answer, because in 2011 we just saw one example of where Muammar Gaddafi rose up to build the African economic system that would have changed drastically the life and the conditions of life of people in Africa. But we saw what happened to him, and that was possible simply because Africa did not have the means to protect its economy. So whoever wants to build a strong economy must first think on how to protect and defend that economic system. So in that saying, I'm trying to say that is not the first priority. The first deal that Africa has to do is to build a continental defense system that will protect its economy. Thank you very much.
Now, with the issue that you just raised and the concept of protectionism, I think is one central element that must be taken into account because, like you already know, most African countries, the economy is very disenfranchised, or the local people are so disenfranchised that they cannot compete competitively with some other foreign corporations. Okay, so the concept of protectionism, to understand, most people might argue that that may not be the right channel or the right mentor of trying to empower the local economy. But on the other hand, I think it helps to protect the local economy. It helps to give power back to small and medium-sized entrepreneur or enterprises, because that way they kind of manage the local economy in a sense, so that the entire economic sector is not dominated by, say, foreign investors and what have you. So why wouldn't you think that Africans would not like to go that route? Because as long as we have adopted this particular concept or this particular policy, now we are, to understand, going to increase the level of competitiveness. And like you mentioned, we are going to open up a free or a level playing field that everyone can compete onto the market and everyone can exhibit what they have to produce and all of that. So why wouldn't we want to prioritize this concept of protectionism, that we increase tariff of every imported goods that comes into the country, whether it is being produced or brought into the country by an African, or it is being brought into the country by a foreigner? As long as this is a foreign goods, we have to increase the tariff on it, and we have to increase import duty and whatever.
All right, thank you so much. But if we have to do that, in other words, the free trade economy, I mean, the free trade deal would not exist, at the end, because the question is, what do we produce as African locally? What are we producing? Starting from food and equipment for industrializing our economy. What do we locally producing? I know that there are countries in Africa that have been already producing good things, such as Ghana is manufacturing costs. Of course, indeed, there are some parts that are being imported, but it's manufacturing costs. I heard that in Rwanda, they are manufacturing cell phones, iPhones. I know that there are certain good things that are being done in Africa, but are those things really enough to cover the needs of 1.3 billion people? I don't think so. And that's the reason why there's strong markets between outside of Africa and inside of Africa. For example, the trade between Africa, from the statistic that I heard, accounts only for 25%, while the trade between African people and outside of Africa account for 75%. That means that we do not producing enough. So if you have to put tariff on the foreign products, which we use, in massive, then what will be the use of the free trade that we signing, unless if there's a kind of mechanism that have been put in place within the clause itself to boost the local economy and create more jobs and more manufacturing industries in Africa, so that we can produce now what we can trade with. And in order to come to that, we must not look to those money lenders who are the IMF and the World Bank. So that definitely brings me to the idea of Brother Kujo earlier on, of who are the engineers, apparently the engineers of this apparently free trade agreement, who happen to be the World Bank, which means it might be something that they have designed already to bring your economy under the control by, borrowing money from them, that will put us in more deep cycle of what I call debt trap. So, I mean, we have to look at it in a very, very different aspects, understand exactly how it can affect us. It's theoretically speaking, it's a good thing, but practically, what are we supposed to do in the first place? Thank you.
Okay, so Kujo, thank you so much, Kabbalah. Kujo is almost relative to the points that Kabbalah has made. Now, this particular document or this particular policy in question has the ability to transform Africa's economic landscape, especially creating productive opportunities for things like manufacturing and increasing job opportunity, commercialized in different kinds of sector. And looking from the perspective when you talk about what does Africa produce and all of those. Now, let's take a little step back and look at Ghana, where you are from, and that of Africa, where Ghana and Africa tend to be corrected, but I think they should be one of the highest producer of cocoa. Yet they do not control things like the chocolate market or what have you. Okay, now, so what amount of reform that do you think we need to prioritize the continent as a whole? What amount of economic reform we need to introduce such that this particular document in question becomes a reality? Now, as Ghana and Africa are one of the highest producer of cocoa in the world, then that means they should be able to industrialize the sector such that they take hold of that particular industry, and the economic proceed will remain within the country and will diversify across the continent of Africa. Okay, so what could you? Okay, are you there? Your mic is off, so just quickly adjust your mic. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So that's a great question. All right. Like I said in the beginning, we have to understand ourselves. We have to make sure that, because even if you just a simple feasibility study of a market, you go with looking at the strength of that particular market, the weakness of that particular market, the opportunities in that particular market, and then the prospective customers of that particular market. All right. This is just on the business side. So in a country, you might want to use the same formula in dealing with each and every country and bringing together the means of tapping into the strength of each and every country, analyzing the weakness and how each and every country can help the weakness of the other and the prospective customers, which is the market as a whole. So looking at the cocoa price with Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, yes, we do produce the world leaders, but we do not even know the price, how to sort of influence the price of cocoa in the world market. It is what? It is being designed and controlled by people who do not produce it. So at the end of the day, let's look at OPEC, right? OPEC is what? All the petroleum countries that come together and they have their own formalities. So it is just what? Demand and supply in the market. When they realize that their price is falling, they come together, they say, you know what? Let's slash demand, let's slash supply. So if we slash supply, there will be what? A shortage of the product in the market. When there is shortage of product in the market, what happens to the price? The price shoots up and they make more money. Why did they come together? Because they want to have that control on the price of their product. That is exactly what Africans need to do. We have all the resources. We have all the manpower. Trust me, I think in the next 10 years, Africa is gonna be the leading population with the lowest age group. Average age group is gonna be 24 years. Compared to any other continent, Africa has the manpower. Every other continent, they're gonna be advanced age, old age people will be their highest population. So at the end of the day, if Africa has this from Africa by Africans, then we need to come together and formulate our own plan as to how can we manipulate our products, the things that comes from Africa, to benefit Africa. So if we do that, then we can have the opportunity to make sure that we indeed benefit from what we produce. If we don't do that and we always export, then we are going to hurt ourselves. Let me tell you this, Ghana and Nigeria do a lot of trade, especially in the area of energy, in the oil sector. So at the end of the day, we know that we are interrelated. If Nigeria is in need, Ghana is going to support. If Ghana is in need, Nigeria is going to support, because we know our strengths. We know our weaknesses. We know what we need from each other because of the long-term trade we have for each other. That is what we need to bring to every African country. Okay? If we do that, then we will prosper. We will benefit. We don't, like our brother Kabbalah said, with respect to this agreement, what I read was the trade and the tariffs will be with respect to only African countries and the goods that are produced in Africa, which is great. Because if these products are produced in Africa, then they benefit those tariffs and they take away some of the red tapes that makes it a little bit difficult to cross border into different countries for what? For sales. If we take all these away and make it easy for manufacturing and other industrialization, then definitely Africa is going to grow, because our goods and services from Ghana can easily go to Mozambique, can easily go to Democratic Republic of Congo without any red tapeism or extreme tariffs, so that the stronghold of Ghana can benefit another country that do not have that stronghold. And if we come together like this, if we see ourselves that there are opportunities and there are weakness, we're going to satisfy both with respect to each country, we will do great. We should have done this, like I said, so many generations ago. But it's not too late. I always tell myself, it's better late than never. So it's a step in the right direction. But we have to make sure that we are ready to pay the price, because there is a whole lot of feasibility studies that needs to be done. There are a whole lot of policies respect to tariffs, respect to regulations in terms of border regulations, harbor regulations that needs to be put in place in every country for this to work for Africans by Africans. That we have to buy into it. We have to do it to make sure we succeed. That is what we need to do.
Okay, thank you so much, Brother Kujo. Now, my dear listening audience, let me quickly remind you that this is the People's Talk Show. The People's Talk Show is a part and parcel of the People's News Africa. It is that platform where we share information like this. So today we are looking at the prospect for the the prospect for the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement that was started on January 1st, 2021. What economic transformation prospect does that hold for Africa? So we are sharing idea and sharing our perspective of how this is expected to benefit the continent of Africa. What are some of the challenges that we might face across the way, and what we could do to help mitigate some of these challenges, as we hope that this particular agreement will be a pathway by which we can transform the continent. So, making this discussion very successful, I'm joined with Kabbalah from DR Congo, and Kujo from Ghana. My name is D. Kafinas Nentu, and I'm speaking to you from Liberia. Gentlemen, let me welcome you once again to the single segment of our conversation. Let me come back to you, Kabbalah. You know, from your opening statement, you mentioned how Africa limitedly interact and do trade amongst themselves, which is a realistic information. Africa do trade with Asia, like China and few other Asian countries, Japan, Vietnam, Thailand, and other areas. Europe, North America, then within Africa. Something which I think is quite unfortunate for the local economy here in Africa. Okay, so basically, how do you think this particular agreement is going to help to reverse the trend that we can now increase the level of transaction? We can now increase trading amongst Africans, because whatever the case may be, the expected outcome is expected to remain here in Africa. Okay, other than helping to boom the economy of other nations and other regions around the world, we can help to boom our own local economy. But I think there is some specific role that this particular free trade agreement is going to play in helping to reverse this particular trend. If you might want to share some perspective on how that can happen.
All right. I think there must be a particular approach to other deals that African countries had individually with the other countries. For example, we know that European Union, for example, used to come, all of them, 28 countries in the bloc, used to come and make a deal with a single African country. And China used to come, all of them, 1.4 billion, can come, for example, and strike a deal with a country like Zambia. And so now, because we have this continental free trade deal in place, in the close of the deal itself, there must be a kind of approach to the previous deals that have already existed with individual African countries with other entities outside of Africa. In that case, it will then reverse the tendency and push African people towards what is existing in the continents, because those old deals might always continue to, to counterbalance the African people or the African trade itself. Because can you imagine that, for example, Rwanda and the Congo have a deal, for example, to supply. For example, Rwanda has to come to bring the chicken, produce chicken, to Congo, for sale. And in the same time, because as a part of the deal, the Continental Free Trade Deal, but at the same time, China produces massive chickens, in industrial capacity, and bring those deals as well to Congo as part of the deal that Congo has struck before with the China. So do you think that the deal between, the African free trade deal between China, between Rwanda and Congo, will have a kind of effects in the markets, in the African markets? I don't think so, because Congolese will be still relying to buy, what China brings, because it's more cheaper than what Rwanda brings. So I think there must be a kind of maybe rising more tariff to imported foods, especially if those food are also produced in the continent. In that case, it will be easier for Africans to turn to themselves rather than always relying on the foreigners' imported food. I think that is one of the way that this can affect, the continent overall. And also, if there can be also a change in a context that, since now African has kind of integrated in markets, has created a common market, there must be also a common cooperation, in a way that, if, for example, America wants to have Russia, because Russia is coming also now, if it wants to have a kind of deal with a particular country in Africa, it must have firstly that deal with the Continental Board that regulates the African trade. It means the deal must be struck with the African continent instead of being struck with a single country in Africa. In that case, we can have a policy. We can have policies in place that really work for us, because, as you said, there's an aspect of drafting policies so that this deal can work, and that's very complex, especially when considering that many African countries have individually dependency with the foreign countries in terms of business and stuff like that. So all of this is very, very complex situation. But however, the deal itself, the agreement itself, is a very positive aspect in terms of what Africa has to look for in terms of the direction of the future. So I guess we have a lot of things to do for that to become more productive and constructive to what Africa is heading to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kabbalah. I think that cannot be overstated how important that is to come up with different kinds of policy that will help to protect the local economy here in Africa. Because once this document, as long as this document has been signed, of course, the dynamics and the scope of economic transaction obviously will change across the continent, and the local economy needs to be protected. Because if you look back and take a time and observe the European market, you realize that there are different kinds of laws and regulations that have been created. There are certain goods you cannot take onto the European market, regardless of what you do. You cannot just take those goods on the market. There are certain finished goods you cannot take on the market, especially if we want to trace the issue of job creation. There are certain goods that when you take onto the European market, you are going to disenfranchise certain companies that are supposed to be creating jobs for European citizens. So basically, you cannot just take certain goods and services onto the European market. Looking at timber, for example, an African country cannot take a furniture and carry it to the European market. Obviously, you can take the raw timber onto the European market, but you cannot take the finished product of that timber onto the European market. They will not want to do that. And things like tomato, when the EU used to transact with Gambia, for instance, you don't take finished product of the tomato onto the European market. Of course, you will take the raw tomato on the market. So we need to have this protectionist concept or policy being developed to help protect the local economy, that whenever there are certain kind of foreign products or foreign goods and services coming into Africa, we have to find ways by which we can engage them such that we do not disenfranchise our own people. Because whatever the case may be, the interests of those we are serving come first, irrespective of who we do business with and whatever investment they are going to bring into the country. our people interest should be number one priority. Okay, so thank you so much, Kabbalah. Now, Kujo, let's look at the level of cooperation. Okay, there are some other key stakeholders who are already disenfranchised with some of the proceedings, some of the ways things have happened. Like, for example, different kinds of trade union, civil society organizations, and different kinds of community feel that they've not had the chance to participate in things like different kinds of consultation that was held across the continent. Okay, they did not have the input into how the entire process could work and what interest they could express, because whatever the case may be, they are the ones who are going to be direct beneficiaries of this particular document. And as long as their interests or their views are not reflected in the final outcome of this particular document, then it creates a little bottleneck when it comes to claiming ownership of this particular document and showing that this reflected the aspiration of the people. So now that this document has already started as of January 1st, 2021, how do you think we can come back to find ways around increasing a level of collaboration, cooperation, and partnership such that this become a document that everyone will buy into and find ways to run with the vision and the objectives that this particular document seeks to accomplish?
That's a great question, but I think the initial move that we have to bear in mind is that we are not going to see the merits of this trade in the immediate future, because the groundwork that need to be put in place are not in place yet. And secondly, every country must commit to pay their price in making sure this works. Because at the end of the day, if it works for everybody in Africa. Like I stated in the beginning, it's gonna eradicate 60% of extreme poverty in Africa. But there are certain things that we need to make sure that our leaders' policies, regulations are being put in place and are met so that we can see the fruits thereof of this policy. Let me say this. China is great at this. When it comes to trade war, they are great. You know why? Because they know they have the market and they know they have the technology of producing whatever they want to produce. So a lot of the foods, a lot of the meat and whatsoever, most of them are GMOs, most of them are cloned. That's why they're able to produce in such a mass quantity. Okay, so at the end of the day, we have to make sure that there's going to be a price to pay. So if an African country, all African countries agree, this is the policy, we are going to see to it that our brothers and of different states, of African states in the same continent, are met first. Their needs are met first. And if there is a policy that is going to hinder the growth of a company in Mozambique at the expense of, let's say, Nigeria, then these two countries must agree that, you know what, we will stand and follow the rules and regulations and policies that we have put in place for our fellow country members to grow. Like our dear brother Kabbalah said, if Democratic Republic of Congo is producing chicken, right, and China is bringing in chicken, what is the responsibility of the government of, let's say, Democratic to Guinea, or let's say Mozambique? They produce their chicken and send to Mozambique. But China is bringing in chicken to Mozambique at a cheaper rate. Who is going to be the line of defense for the companies and for the businesses of the Africa and our neighboring countries? It is the policies that we have laid in place. Are we going to be able to say that, you know what? We know yours are going to be cheap, but we already have some. We know yours is going to be cheap, but this is the amount of tariffs we are going to bring add to you. So at the end of the day, if China comes back and say, I have an agreement with you to borrow my money at this percentage of interest, but if you take my chicken into your country, I will give it to you half of the interest. Will this country stand by and say, thank you, we will deal with that? You see, it's politics. China is great at it. They do that to United States all the time. Sometimes they'll intentionally slash their money, the equivalency of their money compared to their dollar, just so the trade among United States and China favors them. So, like I said, we have to be willing to pay the price, because initially it's not going to be lucrative. It's not going to yield so much for us initially. But as we build upon it, as these companies find themselves growing because their market share is growing on the African continent, respective to different countries in Africa, then we will see the real benefit. If we don't do that, if we don't stand up right now and decide to pay the price, you will see that in some couple of years, this will be what? Will be tumbling down because of what? Economics effect upon this policy. We have to understand that at some point, we need to pay the price. And the price might be, maybe a country that you receive grants from will say, I'm not bringing you grants because you put in so much tariff on my product that's coming to your country, because other country in Africa is giving you the same product. Oh, the military goods that you wanted, I'm not bringing it to you. Are you really going to succumb to them? Or are you going to stand and say that, you know what, I'm standing for Africa because we want Africa to grow? China is great at it. United States is great at it. All these countries are great at it. But can Africa unite and start from somewhere? Because no matter what, we have to start from somewhere and act like we have a backbone to stand on our own 2 feet. If we do that, these are politics on paper. But at the end of the day, we have to do the groundwork to make it work. There is politics in it. But this politics, we have to make sure we stand our ground to make it work. We do that, we stand a chance of greatly increasing the standard of living of Africans.
Okay, thank you so much, Kujo. You stress one very important point, and that has to do with it has to do with integration. Okay, and that will be one of the questions now that I would like to pose to Kabbalah, and we'll also come back to you to gather your perspective on that also. Now, Kabbalah, this document in question, it holds so much potential for Africa, economic diversification, and a wide range of prospects that we are actually looking forward to. But basically, how do you think this is going to increase regional cooperation, regional integration, promoting unity across the continent of Africa? Because obviously, this is what every African yearns for. This is what we seek to happen across the continent of Africa. That's how we can hold our destiny into our hands.
Thank you very much. It's a good question. Indeed, for a long time, we have spoken about the unity of Africa, and that unity must happen. Indeed, it must happen. It must be There must be unity in terms of business, economic unity. There must be scientific unity. There must be political unity. There must be unity at all levels of humans' activities in order to see actually Africa rising again. So I think the first thing that this agreement will bring, it's exactly that spirit of unity, because with the current system, whereby there's a lot of measures, a lot of regulations, sometimes that goes to the level where they can be considered as punishments, of the stock from a particular country get to be really targeted by other country because there's international lobbyist group that want to block those particular products so that they can bring their own products in that country. We have seen those kind of stuff for a long time, and we saw also a kind of trade war between, for example, Zambia and the DR Congo, whereby Zambia, Congo is there's a part of Congo, south side of Congo, that relies or depends on the Zambia in order to get the maize or the meal. So, and there was this particular time whereby uh, during the African Cup, where Congo and Zambia were playing, and then Zambia got beaten by Congo, and then Zambia stopped supplying the maize to Congo for a couple of days, and I'm telling you, it was a very disaster. So, and then that also got to the point where people from Congo started looking at the Zambian people like, no, these foreigners are being, start trying to target Zambian truck drivers in the Congo, start mistreating them in a different way. So I think this deal itself brings a spirit of Ubuntu, which is the fundamental philosophy of African life or African civilization. So by knowing that I can from today I can cross with I can make my product and cross the border, bring it to Mozambique, bring it to Ghana, bring it to without being stigmatized, without being really looked as an alien person. It's already, it already gives me a good mind and a good spirit, and obviously it can help people to transcend other boundaries that exist already in terms of cultural boundaries. We can even look beyond that. It can go beyond that. It's not going to limit only on the point of commerce, of business. It can go beyond. It can go beyond languages. It can help people to learn other languages. It can help people to understand other cultures, and it will definitely get us to the point where we become reunited again and working together as African people, I guess. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, my brother. Well, ladies and gentlemen, like the saying goes, every good thing has to come to an end. This is how we gradually draw down the curtains of our conversation. This has been the production of the People's News Africa, and we have been reviewing the African Free Continental Trade Agreement, assessing what prospect, what economic transformation would that bring for the continent of Africa. And I've had with me in studio Kabala from DR Congo and Kudo from Ghana, and my name is D. Kafinas Nentu. Now, gentlemen, this is the final segment of our conversation where we will be hopeful if you will use the last 1 minute that will be dedicated to each of you to give your parting comments. But I will do this in the form of a question, beginning with Kujo. Now, Kujo, what level of cooperation do you think we need to build across the continent of Africa to make this thing work for Africa? Do we need cooperation from the EU? Do we need cooperation from the US? Do we need cooperation from Asia? Or we believe we, just African, can pursue this goal and achieve it? What exactly must we do as a people? Obviously, we cannot operate we must cooperate as people, whether within or externally. We must cooperate, but we also understand the nature of the cooperation across the continent of Africa and how that has been manipulated over the period of time. So I just want to understand from your point of view what exactly you think we need and how do we proceed with it.
I really think you know the answer to you know my answer to this question. Obviously, no doubt, cooperation of the African countries on the African continent. That's the first. That's the first foundation. Because like our brother talked about, the major thing that these companies that are trying to intra-trade with each other, the major thing that they are going to face is competition. And competition from where? From outside Africa. Like we talked about, making goods so cheap to be able to kill the business that is also making the same goods and services in Africa by bringing those goods from outside Africa into Africa to kill them. We want to make sure that we protect all these businesses, small business, big businesses, whatever, corporations, companies, industries, whatsoever. We need to protect them, and the protection should come from all the countries. If we don't do that, competition alone can kill us. Competition alone can kill the businesses. Let me give you a simple competition. All right. Amazon is a big company, right? Anything that Amazon sells, Google it. That will be the first pop-up on Google. You know why? Because over 80% of people that search for things, they click the first thing that pops up when they search for it. And that is so easy for a company to be killed, because Amazon has the resources for all these giant tech companies. They can pay them, get into what? An agreement with them to make sure that if a search is done on their product or a product that they sell, the pop-up, the first one that pops up, the leading one, should be the product of Amazon. And so if you are a baby company that is coming up, your product is not going to be shown maybe on the first page. It will be somewhere on the 20th page. And that competition alone can destroy your company. So that is why I'm saying there are so many intricacies in this. But all the government agencies must make sure that, hey, if you think you are bringing in something because you are gaining much advantage from a country outside at the expense of a country within the continent of Africa, somebody can also do the same to you with your product on another country. So if we commit by ourselves to this agreement that, hey, if your product from South Africa comes to Nigeria, comes to Ghana, we will make sure that your product is what? Is patronage in the country. Is your services is used in the country. We will promote it. No matter what, we will promote it. Then that product will grow. That company will grow. And so will my product from Ghana when it gets to South Africa. They will do likewise. So if we do that, then we will see some growth, because competition, even though it brings the best in businesses, small businesses, it kills them. It does not bring the best in them. It kills them. So we have to cooperate first by ourselves, all countries in Africa, and then seek to do some geopolitical cooperation with other continents, as long as we benefit. We need to control ourselves and make our cooperation within us our foundation, first and foremost, is what I suggest.
Okay. Now, thank you so much, Kabbalah. You know, all of what we have said here will not amount been put forward. And one of the weaknesses that I've noticed about many African countries is the inability to implement what we say we want to do. Let's take, for example, we have the Aqua Protocol on Free Movement. That document was crafted a very long time ago. If you check out the existing, it's almost close to some 30 years plus now. But you'll be surprised that there are not many people who are aware of that particular document on free movement and how it goes against trafficking in human people. And until now, ECOWAS is still organizing conferences, still organizing seminars around the essence of that particular document and looking into how people get to know the different principles that have been laid down. And because it also cut across doing businesses across the West Africa regions, as long as we have the common passport system and what have you. Okay. So our inability to implement this document sometimes takes the country or the continent backward instead of moving forward. So you realize we take so many years just looking at one policy document. Meanwhile, we have so many more that we're supposed to be reviewing. So implementation is one critical area. How do you think that is going to affect this particular document if we do not take that into serious consideration?
Well, it's going to be a very serious challenge if we do not change the way we have been doing things so far. Because one thing for sure is that Africans have been people who like symbols that do not have substances. And in most cases, we have done things because we have seen other people doing them, and but we didn't really ask ourselves what is going to be the price to pay before we engage ourselves in those initiatives. So I think it comes to the very same point that brother Kujo is overemphasized of willing to pay the price. I think we signing an agreement, it's the first step, but we must measure correctly what is the price we have to pay for this to exist, and we must be definitely willing to pay, because I'm telling you, this from the starting point will be disadvantage for it will be disadvantage for I mean will be kind of a disadvantage for other countries in Africa, and it will be also more advantage for other countries in Africa. For example, country like South Africa will be more advantage than country such as Botswana or even Congo, for example, because in South Africa you have already infrastructure and manufacturing means, so you can produce more and bring to other countries. But what is a country such as, for example, Uganda will do? A country such as Congo will do. So it will find itself forced to reduce taxes that it used to get from imported products. So it will find itself obliged to remove all those taxes, to go away with the income that it used to get from those taxes, because of facilitating the free trade. So other many countries in Africa will be disadvantaged by this, but we need to understand that this is the price to pay in order to get Africa where it's supposed to be. It means that we have to see, through the same difficulties, the very opportunities that we have been hunting for a long time to build ourselves. That means to stand on our bootsteps and then begin to do for ourselves what others want to have for a long time pretended to do for us. So it's very complex, but there's a price to pay, and we have to stand for that, and we have to pay that price in order to see Africa standing up again. Otherwise, it's going to be the very old symbols without substance, as we have heard it for a long time, just like UN itself, UA itself, African Union, AU, as we're having it, is a symbol without substance, because it does not affect the conditions of African people. It does not provide solutions for African people. The very same people who meet there in a circus are the very same people who run, in European institutions, to look for money, to look for aid, to look for whatever, but they are unable to solve the problem of Africa when they're meeting themselves there. It's a circus. So we don't want to see this something becoming a circus, a commercial circus of the powerful African countries to dominate the powerless African countries. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, my dear brother. Thank you, Kujo, for your contribution. Thank you for making this discussion a very successful one. And to our dear listening audience, we also want to take our time to thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. This is how now we would like to bring the show to an end. I've been speaking to you from Liberia. My name is D. Kafinas Nentu, and I've been joined by Kujo from Ghana and Kabbalah from DR Congo. The next time you see us will be next week, Saturday, when we shall be coming to you with another brand new conversation. Have a very good weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Bye bye, and have a very good day.